Hi, I'm Mitch Gallagher and this is Sweetwater's iOS update. This time on the update, a new analog modeled synth from Arturia. Let's get started. Back in 1974, Tom Oberheim introduced an analog synthesizer called the SEM, or Synthesizer Expander Module. Now Arturia has released a virtual version of this that runs on iOS devices. The original SEM was a monophonic analog synthesizer, and Oberheim later released a 4-voice version of that was basically 4 SEMs in one chassis. Later they introduced an 8-voice that was basically 8 SEMs in one chassis. The iSEM from Arturia can simulate all of those. Now of course, being an Arturia synth, they've taken that analog synthesizer and added some great features to it. On the main screen of iSEM, we have control over the main synthesizer parameters. Here we have 2 oscillators as well as a sub-oscillator. We can sync those together for fatter sounds. We also have a voltage-controlled filter that we can modulate using a variety of different sources, 2 different envelopes, and the iSEM adds effects which were not in the original. We've got an overdrive effect, a chorus effect, and a delay effect, as well as an arpeggiator that we can sync to tempo over MIDI, over WIST, or just running straight inside the iSEM itself. One of the great things about the iSEM is the amount of modulation capability we have. There's an entire screen dedicated to this. We've got 8 different sources that can be routed to 8 destinations. The sources can be anything from pitch bend, modulation wheel, LFOs, the envelopes, and we can route those to a wide variety of different destinations. And in fact, you can route any of the sources to all 8 of those destinations for very complex modulation routings. Now of course the keyboard on the screen only covers about 1.5 octaves, but we can scroll that keyboard back and forth. We can also turn on hold, which will sustain a pitch. We can also play chords on the keyboard. Just finger the chord that you want, hit the chord button, and now when we play a single key, that same chord will be played. We have on-screen modulation and pitch bend wheels. Now the interesting thing about these is they work authentically to the way the original Oberheims worked, which means that the pitch bend actually goes down and up in the reverse directions that you'd expect. There is a setting for that you can change in the iPad setting that changes that to the more conventional pitch bend down, lowers the pitch bend up, raises the pitch. At the top of the screen, we can access the input and output settings for the iSEM. Just hit the arrow here. We've got WIST or WIST controls if you're synchronizing to another iOS device. You can route this to audio bus. We have MIDI in and out. We can set the MIDI channel. So all of those things are taken care of here at the top of the screen. We can close that panel once we have those set. As I mentioned earlier, the original SEM was a monophonic analog synthesizer, and later they released 4-voice and 8-voice versions of that. The iSEM has the same sort of feature. If we go over to the voice programmer page, we have 8 different voices here set up, just as you would have had with the original 8-voice synthesizer. Now each of these voices can have the parameters modified from the original one that's been set up on the main screen. We do that over here. We select each of the different parameters that we want. We can turn those on and off, and then you can adjust the amount of change for each one of those voices. Now we have a setting up here that allows us to set how it changes through those voices as you're playing the keyboard. In this case, it's cycling through using the arpeggiator. So we're getting a continuously evolving sound. In other cases, you can set it up so that each time you play a key, you step to the next voice, and so on. It will randomly jump from voice to voice, so you can get a lot of variation to sound, and in fact, you can simulate that original multi-timbral effect that the original 8-voice and 4-voice synthesizers could generate. Our next screen is the effects screen, and this is where we program the settings for the overdrive, the chorus, and the delay. Now we have the same overdrive, chorus, and delay master controls on the main screen, and we also have that on the performance screen, which is over here. The performance screen gives us access to those effects, as I mentioned, and it also gives you 4 different parameters that you're likely to want to grab during a live performance. So you could set this for a filter cutoff, for example, and sweep through that as you're playing a lead or a bass line. iSEM comes with more than 500 presets that have been created by a wide variety of world-renowned synthesizer programmers. Let's check out some of the sounds it can create. I hope you've enjoyed this installment of Sweetwater's iOS update. Be sure to tune in next time. We'll have more apps, more hardware accessories, and more tech tips on making music with your iOS devices. I'm Mitch Gallagher.